I feel though that for the NHS world, because it is more based around, if I'm right, theory
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
practice,
yeah,
and with that is statutory learning,
yeah,
then the practitioners are more governed in how they progress with their understanding and how they're sharpening their tools.
yeah,
For the community based work,
yeah.
it, there isn't really no governance,
Yeah,
and there isn't really no one overseeing and being on top of the practitioners who are supposed to sharpen their
the
tools.
tools, exactly.
So what I find is when I'm delivering training
Yeah,
and I'm showing what I consider to be the basics of how to understand young people and their culture,
mm,
most practitioners don't know.
yeah, yeah,
So, social media and how young people are communicating through violence on social media,
yeah,
how, or how young people are groomed
yes,
through county lines on social media.
yeah,
I'm not seeing, when I'm still delivering
yeah,
some of my content
yeah,
that's 2 3 years old, that's still relevant, that to me every practitioner should know,
mm,
and they don't. So I feel like that's, in terms of, and we're dealing with, county lines, child exploitation, children being groomed, children going on to kill, children going on to be killed,
yeah,
as at the most extreme.
mm.
And I don't see it being taken as serious within my field.
And that's a good point. That's a
you
good
know
point, Tanayah, because I think we are within the NHS, and statutory services generally, they're faced with the same issue, because that sharpening the tool, it requires an intrinsic drive.
mm,
It's the organizations can pay you to do the training. From my experience with some of my staff, they're probably copying the answers of each other when there's an online training, for example.
yeah,
So it's only those people who see the worth of me going out to seek the knowledge so I can deliver the best service I possibly can.
yeah.
That's what it's about. But the question arises though, Tanayah, right? Why aren't people seeking that type of knowledge that will help them move the needle in terms of what they're trying to achieve? The objective, as someone who's working in the youth services, for example, and the people who you'll be delivering training to, they've got an objective, isn't it? To keep children safe and provide opportunity and the likes of, yeah? So if they're not seeking fundamental knowledge in that regard, then there's a problem.
See, safeguarding
Yeah.
is something that's kept on top of,
Yeah,
but we come in as youth. We were here in Burger Bar and Johnson's,
mm,
and there are some practitioners today who operate still within the framework of Burger Bar and Johnson's.
yeah,
And although, yes, back then there was young people involved in drugs,
yeah.
there was involved in violence, there was involved in sexual exploitation, etc. Things have shifted
Yeah.
in the way they operate today.
So they need to be aware of that.
You understand?
Yeah.
So the ideology, why is it that a young person with two parents and the home is pretty affluent, middle class to affluent, they're living in Sutton Coldfield or an area of, affluence, so to speak, will end up getting involved in knife crime and county lines, because the teachings of old says, well, if one parent household, poverty, blah blah, is what's going to lead it, but those individuals there are kind of gonna get bypassed.
Yeah.
But the reality today is there's a lot more young people who are coming from homes that traditionally wouldn't be
Exactly.
associated with the types of crimes
Yeah.
that are now more involved. You understand?
That's crazy.
But sharpening your tools, you would understand what's going on.
Yes, yeah.
And you'll see the ideological change within the way young people operate and communicate within their culture, because it's their culture.
Yeah.
Because we're adults now.
Yes, exactly.
And they've taken ownership of their culture.
Yeah.
But what I find with a lot of adult practitioners is they're still operating as though it's their culture. It's not their culture no more.
Yes.
You understand?
So
it's evolved.
It in a sense it's a similar it sounds like an issue, and to a certain degree, with like empathy, because one of the things with empathy that makes it effective is that you see things from another person's frame of reference. So what you're describing here is that, you know, there's practitioners who are seeing it from their own frame of reference as opposed to the people who they're working with. And that's an issue, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I wonder how much of practitioners, right? I don't know your field, and you're the expert in your field, but I wonder if there's practitioners who feel as though they're not making a difference anyway. So, do you know what? They're a bit sort of, they despair, you know, they lose hope. It's sort of like containment and firefighting. You know, so there's this feeling like, wow, what's the point, you know?
And we do come across that, and it is, I mean, you mentioned the word firefighting. Within the industry now of, you know, working, challenging, let's say, county lines, 2019, 2020, government published 9 billion was raised. 9 billion was generated from county lines.
Wow.
9 billion. This was where we're now seeing regularly 11, 12, 13, 14-year-olds going missing for a week. Now, for those working within that doesn't understand that and hasn't sharpened their tools, they are going to feel dejected, and it's going to get to the point where they're worn out. You know, and I've spoke to police officers who just can't make sense of it.
Yeah.
And they're having to respond to calls of young people that keep going missing.
Yeah.
They can't understand. But what's different today is some of those young people have got 2 parents in the home. There's 2 cars on the drive. That home's brought.
Yeah.
So the issues have slightly shifted.
Yeah. But again though, right, tonight is that, you know, as societal values change, and so too does the culture. It reflects that the youths are growing up with and what they're exposed to in terms of social media, right? You know, perhaps, you know, a few years back, 20 years ago, people living in affluent areas weren't so exposed to what was going on in the ends. Now everybody's exposed to it, you know. Even if you look at some of the artists now, some of the artists that are talking about the madness, the crime, they look like people from affluent areas, look like young white teenagers from affluent areas.
Yeah.
So they relate to them as well. It's similar to what we was going through with, you know, like the gangster rap culture in the 80s, 90s, you know, they look like us and we aspire to be like them. Now everybody's listening to grime, everybody's listening to the UK music scene, and exposed to the hype as well. But the parents are working even harder. Both parents are working. The conjugal roles has changed. That's been changing from the 50s. There were studies in the world of sociology that spoke about the conjugal roles and how that has changed, and the dynamics that's created within families. All of those things have to be considered, and you're right. I think the only way we can start to address these issues if we look within, and we start to look at, you know, what does it look like for us to sharpen our own tools. It may mean that we need to sharpen up on our communication skills with our kids. It may mean that we need to have these difficult conversations. It may mean that we need to develop more emotional intelligence. So it comes down to deliberate practice. If we want to get better within ourselves, right, we need to start to practice deliberate practice, so that we can get better in those areas which are causing or wreaking havoc amongst families.
Yeah.
And I find especially with people who help other people, this notion of feeling like I'm not making a difference, then work becomes just another task. Whereas this type of work, the work that you and I engage in, it requires a bit more. It requires a purpose. It requires something. You want to make a difference, but we get sort of digested when we feel like there's no difference being made. So what's the point?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? There's only so much. So we've got to really break it down. And for me, working for 22 years in my field, I get a lot of revolving door. People like you feel like I'm just not making any headway. But it's got to be on an individual level. You've got to set yourself individual targets. It may be just one person in a period of time that you really make a difference.
And I think that's key, and that's been my approach. And I feel like because of my past of being from where the children are coming from, that's probably how I see it a lot more, as in, you know what, I changed so somebody else can change.
Yeah.
And I can support and help someone to change.
Yes, exactly.
And it might be a period of time where I'm not seeing the necessary results that I would like.
Yeah.
But then out the blue, you see someone and they will be like, yo, because he did this, or because he... And it just reinvigorates and kickstarts a whole new set of months to go through with the challenges. But I've got vigor.
Yeah, energy.
New armor.
Energy. Oh, but you know what? Let me tell you this.